Hunting and fishing, family, faith are important to Gary, and I know he's got some important things to share with us tonight, so let's give a warm welcome to our guest speaker, Garry Mason.
Thank you, Garry. Thank you, boy. I tell you what, I want to just sit and listen to that guy talk about me. He done a way better job than I could have introduced myself. But folks, glad to have each and every one of y'all here. I appreciate y'all coming out. Let's give a big round of applause to Daryl and Mike and all the folks that put this wonderful event on. Give them a big round. I hadn't got to listen to the Bluegrass Band yet, but I hear that they're awfully good, so hopefully they'll play again. 7:30, all right. I know after they play, Mr. Alex Rutledge, my blood brother, is going to be up here talking to you guys. I know you're going to want to stick around and hear Alex speak. He is absolutely phenomenal. One of the finest deer and turkey hunters there are in any portion of this country. I want to tell you a little bit about me that Daryl didn't tell you. I grew up in a 4-room house with a coal stove. We had a bathroom 100 yards out back, and we had running water if you could move with it in the wintertime, and it didn't freeze in the bucket before you got to the house. I was the oldest of 5 children. In the wintertime, Mama boiled the water on the stove. I never got to take a bath in clean water until I was 18 years old. You know, all the little kids, you start with the baby sister and go up. You know, the oldest kid is the last one to get to take a bath. So I come from very, very humble beginnings. We had a Methodist church right up the road from where we lived. And one thing, my granddaddy had a small tobacco and cattle farm that we grew up on. What time we wasn't hauling hay, we was suckering tobacco. Some of y'all may have grown up on a farm like that. We had 30 head of white-faced cows and 4 horses. And but on Sunday, we went to church. That's what you done on Sunday. You know, there wasn't no question. There wasn't no getting up. Well, I don't want to go to church today. No, there wasn't none of that. You got up and went to church on Sunday. Sunday afternoon was our playtime. That's when we got to go hunting or fishing or whatever we want to do. Because the rest of the week, we was working. You know, the men folks went to their particular jobs. I'll never forget, I always looked up to my grandfather because he held 3 jobs. He had the farm, he worked at a factory 5-6 days a week, and on the days when the regular rural mail carrier couldn't carry the mail, my granddaddy would carry the mail in the daytime and work his second shift job and still get the cows fed. I'll never forget, when I was 12 years old, I was helping my granddaddy feed the cows in the wintertime, and he went to the store, the local general store there, and bought me a pair. Y'all remember the little green rubber boots that lace up? I washed them boots every day after we come out of the barnyard. I mean, every day. Those boots were cleaner than the ones I've got on right now, I promise you. But that was a big deal to get something like that, and you wanted to be responsible for it and take care of it, because that's all you had. Fortunately, our kids are growing up in a time now when times are a lot better. The parents have got more money. We provide more things for our kids, sometimes more things than we should. But that's the way we grew up. I met my wife in high school. We were high school sweethearts. We got married right out of high school and immediately set up house and started raising a family. She should be canonized into sainthood for staying with me for 41 years because I love to hunt and fish. I used to tell people that when I first started our married career, my wife used to lay in bed in the morning and cry because I was getting up and leaving her and going hunting and fishing. She didn't understand. But then when I started guiding and making a living at it, she'd lay in bed and cry if I didn't get up and go hunting and fishing. Bring some money back, right? So she could go shopping. But we've had a wonderful life. God has blessed us. As Daryl said, I've got 3 wonderful children. I've got 6 grandchildren. My waterfowl hunting partner is sitting back here. He come up with me. Mr. Eddie Shankle, and I have got to travel from those humble beginnings all over this great country and hunt and fish and guide people hunting and fishing. As he said, I've guided Whitey Herzog, I've guided Red Shandies, Porter Wagner, Little Jimmy Dickens, Grandpa Jones, Jim Ed Brown, Jimmy C. Newman, and more, and several more. Jerry Reed was one of my very, very best friends. Matter of fact, Alex will tell you the story about me and him going fishing on the Current River, and just as we dropped off the hill, we had a camera guy with us, and my phone rang, and I said, Alex, please pull over. I got to take this call. He pulls over, and I talked to this gentleman for about 10 minutes, and Alex finally looks at the camera guy and says, who's he talking to? And Tommy says, I don't know, I think it's Jerry Reed. He said, Smokey and the Bandit, Jerry Reed? Tommy said, yeah. And he was right. That's who I was talking to. But I have got I've been blessed with making friends with some of the most wonderful people in the whole wide world, traveling and getting to guide these folks. And the one thing that I found out, Mark McGuire's brother-in-law and father-in-law fished with me many, many years. I found out that each one of these guys that are good guys are just like all of us sitting here. They're just getting to do what they love to do for a living. Guys, I'll tell you, I'm no different than any one of y'all. I've just got to do what I enjoyed for a living, and I've been the lucky one, okay? Some of you guys have to sit in an office 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 9 to 5 job. Some of you may be doctors, lawyers, dentists, you know, whatever your career may be. You don't get to get out as much in the outdoors as you would enjoy. I can tell you, I'm the blessed one. Now, most people tell me they'd like to do what I do for a living. They don't see the dog kennels getting washed out every day and the boats getting cleaned and everything that goes along with it. But let me tell you, in any job, if you're going to be successful, there's a lot of really hard stuff that goes along with it. Nobody's going to wash the boat for you. Nobody's going to put new line on the rod and reel. Nobody's going to check the dogs to see if they got ticks, okay? Nobody's going to wash the kennels out for you. You got to do all that yourself. But behind all that is the knowledge and knowing that tomorrow morning I get to take somebody else on a wonderful fishing trip, or I get to take somebody else on a great duck hunt with my partner. You know, you can't be any more blessed than that. And to have family and friends around you. You know, we talked about, when Mike and them talked to me about coming up here, they wanted me to share some tips and techniques about hunting. Well, I'm going to tell you some very important things that's important to me. I don't think like a lot of other hunters. How many duck hunters we got out there? Any duck hunters we got out there? I don't think that a duck gets blind shy, call shy, or decoy shy. I'm sorry, guys, you've been told that all your life. But I don't think that they do. What I think happens is I think they get in an area, they get used to the loud noises that's going on when they fly by that duck blind, and they learn not to go there. If you was at McDonald's and somebody started shooting, you wouldn't go to that McDonald's again. But guess what would happen if you went 100 miles down the road and you got hungry? Swing right into that McDonald's. And that's the way ducks and geese are. They don't, you know, if they got call shy, blind shy, or decoy shy, we'd never kill one in Missouri. We'd never kill one in Tennessee where I live. Because they've seen every hunting situation that they can possibly see. They've seen every decoy, and they've heard every duck call that's been made known to man from the time they leave Canada till they get to where I'm at. And they're going to hear even more as they go to Mississippi and Louisiana. And guys, let me tell you this. In the hands of someone that don't know how to use it, a duck call, turkey call, deer call, goose call, crow call, coyote call, in the hands of someone that don't know how to use them, is the greatest conservation tool ever been made known to man. Okay? Fishing. We talk ourselves out of more things. How many of you have ever been crappie fishing? We got any crappie fishermen out there? How many of you have ever been crappie fishing and you're around the corner and there's somebody sitting on your favorite spot? How many? All of us. Everybody. Guys, everybody loves to fish. If I put a crappie bed out on Kentucky Lake, guess what happens to that crappie bed if I'm not sitting on it? It becomes the property of whoever finds it and whoever else is sitting on it. I've heard professional guides all my life that I've worked around talk about my beds, my this, my that. Well, when you put them in a public waterway, they're not yours any longer if you're not sitting there, and everybody loves to catch fish. As a professional guide on Kentucky Lake, I have considered myself an ambassador to my particular lake, to my state of Tennessee, everywhere I travel. And the reason I think of myself that way is because I'm going to try to help people. A good guide is not going to catch the fish for you. He's going to try to help you learn how to catch fish. I've had trips where the guys that fished with me didn't catch but 10 or 12 fish, 10 or 12 crappie. Now you might think that's a bad trip. But guess what, guys? If you learn a bunch from that guy, and he really worked hard to teach you, and those crappie weren't biting, or bluegill or bass or whatever it was, because we know there's days they don't bite, right? If they weren't biting, but he really worked hard to try to teach you his techniques and why he does stuff and how he does it, you've had a successful day. That man has given you what you paid for. Most of the time, if he's really good at it, he's giving you more than what you paid for. One secret I'll share with you is never hire a skinny guide. I mean, you look at me. Y'all know why you never hire a skinny guide? They don't know the good places to go eat when the fish ain't biting. And trust me, when the fish ain't biting, I am, okay? I always get these folks from up north, and they'll be up from Minnesota. Anybody know anybody from Minnesota? Good. I'll get folks from Minnesota or somewhere up there, and they'll call me, and they'll want to go on a fishing trip, and they'll say, well, do you do shore lunches? Yep, sure do. We pull up on that shore, we walk up to the restaurant, and we eat, and then we come back down to the boat, and we go fishing again. And they'll say, well, why don't you do shore lunches? I said, well, have you ever heard of cottonmouth rattlesnakes and copperheads? Yeah. I said, well, we got all three, and they like being around that waterway, so we don't go up on the shore and fix shore lunches. Deer hunting. I'm not a big deer hunter. My partner back there is a big deer hunter, but he'll be the first one to tell you that a deer's got a little old brain about this big around. He thinks about three things. Three things. Most wild game thinks about three things. They think about food, shelter, and having little ones. Okay? Not necessarily in that order. That's all they're thinking about. Survival. That's what they do best, is they survive. We, on the other hand, great big grown men with a brain about, some of us got like this, but others have got nice brains. Some of you guys got nice brains, I'm sure. We sit in that deer stand and we get to thinking. How many of us do that? We get to thinking. Boy, that old deer ain't going to come by today. The wind's blowing wrong. He must have stayed up all night last night eating and flirting with does, around here. He's not going to come by here today. I think I'll get out of the stand and I may walk down here 100 yards. What happens? You get out there, you get about 3 rungs down the ladder and turn around and you hear, whoosh. There he goes. All you see is the white flag. Goodbye. He ain't coming back for a week. He just found you out. We talk ourselves out of more things. I'm a level 2 sporting clays instructor. I learned to give sporting clays lessons when I wanted to help my customers that were waterfowl hunting with me and going up to South Dakota and pheasant hunting with me. I wanted to help them be better shooters. So I learned to give sporting clays lessons or shooting lessons. And I also thought it might help my shooting a little bit because I miss a target every once in a while too. But I learned how to give these lessons and how to teach people to be better shots. But if you think about it and you stood on the plate, how many of you played baseball or softball? I know some of you did. If you stood at the plate and you told yourself, okay, the pitcher's winding up, here comes the ball, it's 2/3 of the way here, it's halfway here, I'm going to start swinging the bat now, would you ever hit the ball? Golfing's the same way. If you told yourself what to do with a golf club, would you ever hit the ball off the tee? Never. Our brain, our hand and eye coordination that the Lord give us, our eyesight, our hearing, our smell, sense of smell, and everything that we've got, were designed to help us be naturals at anything we do. Now granted, there's guys out there that can hit a target better than I can. They can hit a baseball better than I can. They can certainly hit a golf ball better than I can because when I golf, I have to holler 3 instead of 4. My short game and my putting game looks a whole lot like the same. But you can't talk yourself out of this stuff. Confidence in whatever you do, whether you're up here speaking to a crowd, whether you're hunting, whether you're fishing, learn as much as you can possibly learn about the particular animal that you're hunting, fishing for, whatever it might be. Some of the stuff you're going to learn is going to be junk. Trust me. Some of the stuff I might teach you might be junk to you for your particular lake. But I guarantee you, some of the stuff you're going to learn from me and that you're going to learn from others about calling, about fishing, and about other things, even about life, is going to help you. And parents, you guys that's got these young men and young ladies with you, let me tell you, Mama's going to get mad at me for saying this away, but I'm going to say it anyway. Kids and puppies are just alike. You train either one of them the same way, a little bit at a time. Now, we're grown men, big burly guys. In the wintertime, most of us grow a full beard, and, we start wearing orange or, camouflage. The one thing we can't wait on when we get a little bitty boy that comes into our household is for him to get big enough, or a girl, either one, for them to get big enough for us to carry to hunting, fishing, or whatever we love doing, right? Am I right? We can't wait. Man, what a proud moment when that baby's born. All you're thinking about is, man, I can't wait to put him in camouflage. Get him out of them diapers and put him in camouflage. Why, if I can find some camouflage diapers, I'm going to put him in camouflage diapers. Kids and puppies. My granddaddy raised bird dogs and several grandkids. We all wanted to be around my grandfather. Number one, he was a grandfather figure. We looked up to him. He was a big bird hunter. We looked up to him. But the reason we wanted to be around him, I think, is he made everything we done fun. I talked a while ago about going down to the barn with him and helping him feed the 30 head of cows. Every day I went with him. From the time I was this boy's age right here and was old enough to go down there, I went with him. He never let me believe that I was working. Any of y'all ever hauled 100 bales of hay to a barn? It's work. I don't want to do it today, but my granddaddy never let us believe that we were working. He made it fun. If we went down to the barn with my granddaddy and it was cold, he'd say, hey, let's throw out a couple of bales and we'll go in the barn here, or he had a little side shed off there. He always kept some firewood down there. We'd build up a fire and sit there, and he'd say, well, let's run back out there and throw another bale of hay out, Hey, by the way, I brought some marshmallows. He made it fun. Training a kid, training a puppy. Make it fun. You take your child out deer hunting or fishing, and they're not biting or the deer's not moving, don't keep Junior out there until he's freezing to death or till he's bored. The worst thing we do is we try to show them how much we know in one trip. Well, guess what? 9 times out of 10, that young person is not going to want to go back with us. Same way with training puppies. You get that puppy out of the kennel, you start working with them. Everybody thinks they got to work with a puppy for 30 minutes a day. That's the old attaché, I got to work with him 30 minutes a day. No, you don't. 5 minutes. 5 minutes when you go out to feed him. You can do more in 5 minutes. Put that puppy up when he's happy. Same way with that young person. Take that young person and ask him, well, son, we've been here 25 minutes. We hadn't seen a deer. What would you like to do? Well, Dad, I'd really like to go to McDonald's and get a Happy Meal. Oh, 2 Happy Meals coming up. That's where we're going. I hope that my grandkids feel the same way about me because I've tried to teach them the same thing. Tried to do the same thing with them. If we go out fishing and the fish are not biting, I'm going to ask them, hey, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Swimming? Okay. Let's pull up to the bank and let's swim. Let the kid do what he wants to do. And I promise you, my 2 sons, by the time they were 13 and 14 years old, was out fishing me, out hunting me. They were better duck callers than I was, and they was for sure better turkey hunters than I was because they had just stocked wild turkeys in our area, and I didn't know much about it, but they learned. Talking about kids, I want to share 3 testimonies with you because Darrell told you that I love the Lord, and I do. I could not be standing in front of you today without him. I wouldn't be anything without him, and none of you guys would be either. I started in 2009 the first collegiate bass fishing scholarship program in America at Bethel University. I'm still today their head coach. We've won 3 national championship rings in 6 years. This will be our 7th year. I'll have 35 students on scholarship going to college to bass fish. Any of y'all got any eligibility left? The second year that we started this program, my coach is a Baptist minister. I just picked up my brand new Triton bass boat, which I've been sponsored by Earl Bentz for 17 years, ever since within a year of when he started that company. I just went to the plant, picked my boat up, and we went to Wheeler Lake where our guys was competing in a championship. Kenny and I get to the dock where there's a bait and tackle store a couple hours early before they're going to do the weigh-in. Our guys are out there fishing. We're standing there by my new boat. Of course, I already had all my fishing stuff with me and had already put it in the boat. This young man walks up to us, about 19 years old. He's got a plastic bag over his shoulder, and he's got a stick. The stick's about 4.5, 5 foot long. Just something that he cut off of a tree. Okay? He looks at me and he says, sir, he said, could I bother you for a minute? I said, well, sure. He said, do you have any fishing line? I said, yeah, I've got some fishing line. He said, can I have some? And I said, well, sure. I said, where's your rod and reel? Well, I don't have one. All I've got is this stick. And I said, so all you got to fish was this stick? And he said, yeah. He said, I had some fishing line somebody gave me and a hook, and I was down there turning rocks over and getting worms and catching some small brim, but a turtle or something grabbed my line and broke it off, and I don't have any line. I turned to my coach and I said, run in there and get this boy a rod and reel. And I gave him some money. We'd seen some closed-face rod and reels up there at the store. He went in and got him a rod and reel. And while I was talking to the young man, I got up in the boat and I gave him line and all kinds of lures and stuff that I had in the boat. This young man really touched my heart. My coach come back out with that brand new rod and reel and presented it to this young man. And at the time, I'd asked him, I said, son, are you homeless? And he said, no. He said, I've got a room that I stay in. He said, a widow lady gives to me for free. And I said, do you know Jesus Christ as your Savior? He said, yes, I do. I've been saved. I said, that's wonderful. So Kenny come out, we give the young man the rod and the reel and all that fishing tackle and stuff. And big tears come in his eyes, and he said, well, he said, now I can throw my stick away. I said, no, you can't. I said, Moses had a staff. He turned it into a snake, that ate up all the serpents that the Pharaohs put out. All the shepherds had staffs to keep the wolves away, and guard their sheep. Almost everybody in the Bible had a walking stick. Those sticks give those men faith. Every one of them had faith because they had a staff in their hand. They had faith they could drive a wolf away from the flock because they had a staff in their hand. They had a stick. I turned to that young man and I said, because of your stick, it gave you enough faith to walk up and ask two complete strangers for something that you needed and that you didn't have. And look what you got in return because of the faith of that stick. When we ask God for something, look at what we get in return. Way more than we ask for. God gives us way more than we ever asked for. He's given me way more in my life than I've ever asked for. Way more. I don't deserve what He's given me. If my sins were in baskets, guys, you'd fill this room up with them. Jesus Christ died on the cross to take my sins away from me. To do away with everything that I've thought, every ugly thing I've ever said to anyone. He done away with all those just by dying on the cross for me. He died on the cross for each one of y'all. I want to give you another story. My oldest grandson just turned 20 years old day before yesterday. It's hard to believe my wife is that old, that she's got a 20-year-old grandson. Life passes before your eyes. When my 20-year-old grandson was 14, I carried him to the church much like this. They had a big outdoor show, and my other two grandkids and my oldest son was there, and they had this big thing, and they had about 250 people in the crowd, and the preacher was preaching, and they was going to give away a Ruger .22 rifle and an 873-inch Magnum shotgun to somebody in that crowd. So as the preacher's preaching, as he winds down, the young man is stirring the bucket around, or whatever they had, the box that had everybody's name in them on cards, just like you guys filled out. 250 cards in there. They drawed a name. The young man said, guys, this is a 14-year-old male child. Well, all the 14-year-olds, please stand up. 8 young men stood up. He said, this is a 14-year-old from Springville, Tennessee. Well, all you guys that's not from Springville, sit down. 2 young men was left standing. My grandson and one of his best friends that was in the 9th grade with him. The guy called out the other young man's name. I could see kind of a disappointed look on my grandson's face as he come down and sat back down. So the preacher started talking again, and he talked for probably 5 minutes. The whole time this young man is stirring his hand in this box. Got 249 names in it, right? So they draw out another name for the shotgun. This guy says, you're not going to believe this, but he said, this is another 14-year-old male child. Would all the 14-year-olds stand back up? 7 guys stood up. He said, and this is another male child, 14 years old, from Springville, Tennessee. It was my grandson, and he won. He went up there and got his shotgun, brought it back so we could look at it, because you had to go through the stuff. His daddy had to get it for him. As he brought it back to the table, I looked up at him and I said, Austin, great job, son. Great job. You won that shotgun. He said, Papa, I knew I was going to win. I said, now, Austin, I said, there was 249 names in that box. The preacher talked for 5 minutes, and they stirred that box up. Another 14-year-old boy from Springville, Tennessee, there was only 2 of you, had won the rifle. It was almost near an impossible thing for you to win that shotgun. How did you know you were going to win that shotgun? And he looked at me and he said, Papa, I prayed the whole time after I didn't win that one. I prayed that God would let me win that other one. And I knew when they pulled the card out, it was my name. Faith of a child. 14-year-old child. Sat there and prayed to God and believed and had faith that God was going to give him what he asked for. Guys, it don't get no better than that. It don't get any stronger than that. I mean, when I sat there, I bawled like a baby. I couldn't help it. If it'd been your grandson, I'd have cried too. Any of you. These children sitting right here, they believe everything you tell them. So never lie to one of them. Tell them the truth. It's a lot easier for them to hear the truth than it is something that they believe to be the truth and not find out that it's not the truth. faith of a child. The last time that Mr. Obama ran for president, if y'all remember, our economy was going down in the tank. As Darrell told you, I own and founded the Legends of the Outdoors National Hall of Fame. Well, I actually don't own it. The people that's in it and the people that are going in it owns it. Y'all can go to my website, legendsoftheoutdoors.com, and you can read all about it. I'm not going to elaborate much on it other than to tell you that the last time that Mr. Obama ran for president, our economy was bad. And the people that had been with me that had sponsored the event for 7, 8 years, this is our 14th year of doing this, for 7 or 8 years, had been with me and had sponsored tables and sponsored the event, and almost every one of them was telling me, we just can't do it this year. We can't buy a table for $1,000. We can't sponsor the event. Some of them said, we can't even buy a ticket this year. We're scared of what's going to happen to our economy. I understood. But I also knew that God had given me this. God put me in charge of this. Trust me, guys, I wasn't smart enough to come up with the idea of having a Hall of Fame in America for all the men and women in the outdoors hunting and fishing industry. All the great men and women that you see, and we've, of course, found out in 14 years old, there's way more than we even know. You know, our organization encompasses the whole outdoors industry. I wasn't smart enough to come up with that. One day God just said, bam, just like that. And the idea hit me. It come from upstairs. Because trust me, some of my teachers in high school tell you that this old boy wasn't smart enough to think of something like that. God gave it to me. So that particular year, I was sitting there wondering how in the world I was going to put this thing on, because I'd already committed. I'd committed to the hotel where we were going to have it. I'd committed to Hank Parker and to Brenda Valentine and to other outdoor celebrities that were going to be there that year. They were coming. I couldn't afford to take money out of my own pocket to make this thing happen. Still can't today. So I put my hands under my chin and I said, God, I'm going to turn this over to you. I'm either doing something that you don't want me to do, or I'm not doing this the way that you want it done. I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm not going to worry about it. I've been worried about it for a month. I'm not going to worry about it any longer. I'm turning it over to you. I'm putting it in your hands. You lead, guide, and direct me on what you would like me to do and how you would like for me to do it. I went to bed that night calm as still water, because I knew that whatever happened, it was in God's hands. The very next day, I was sitting in my office at 9:15 in the morning. I'll never forget it. My phone rang, my cell phone rang. It was the president of In Country Television. Called me and said, hey, how much would it cost us to be the presentation sponsor for your event this year? I said, I don't know. What do you think it's worth to you? He said, how about 10 grand? I'll get you a check in the mail tomorrow. Guys, after I got off the phone with him, I was crying again. A hush fell over me, because guess what? I just asked the Lord something, and if he'd have given me $20, it'd been $20 I didn't have. He'd give me $10,000. He'd give me enough money to put the whole event on, regardless of who else had sponsored or who else was going to sponsor. He'd give me way more than I asked for. In your life today, and I know each one of you love to hunt and fish, but let me just tell you, in your life today, if God is asking you to be a part of what he loves, become a part of it. Get with some of these men here at this church. Get with your particular church, with your preacher, and go sit down with them. You know, we're big burly guys. We tend to think that we can do all this without anybody's help. Without anybody's help. Guys, I'm going to tell you, you can't do nothing without God's help. You cannot do a thing. You can't drive down the road tonight when you leave here without God being in the seat with you. You can't do it. It's not possible. God's hand has got to be on everything that you do. Even those people that's out there today, and we're all sinners, trust me. Like I said, my baskets would fill up this room. Those people that don't acknowledge God, that say they're atheist, they're not. There's no such thing as an atheist. I don't believe that there ever will be. Darrell and I talked about it yesterday. Mike Bundy and I have talked about it. How many times have each one of you been going to a hunt early in the morning? You get out in that deer stand, or you're driving through the country, or you're out in that boat fishing, how many of you have seen the face of Jesus Christ? How many? Guys, I'm telling you, every one of you have. Every single one of us sitting in this room has seen the face of God in the outdoors. Every one of us. Look for it. It's there. It's there every day. Don't let it pass you by. I love to see the sunrise. I get up every morning before the sunrise. It's my job to beat the sunrise. Okay? I love it. I love to see that sunrise come up. Now, you might call my house at 8 o'clock at night and not get to talk to me because I'm in bed, but at 5 o'clock in the morning, if you want to call me. I'll be up. Don't pass up the opportunity each and every day to see the face of God in each and every trail that you make. With that, I'm going to ask Daryl to come back up. Thank y'all so much for coming and listening to me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. I know we hadn't talked much about hunting and fishing, but I just felt it in my heart to tell you the things that I believe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you'll take what I've said home with you tonight. I hope you'll stick around and see Alex Rutledge. He's a far greater man than I am, and I guarantee you'll go away with something that's a gift from Alex to all you guys. Thank y'all so much.